You know, midnight. Midnight is considered a compound word. Middle night. So 12 in the midnight is actually the middle of the night. Have you ever wondered why is it that 1 minute after the middle, it's considered a new day? Shouldn't the next day start at 6 a.m.? Okay, so Proverbs 13, we may have heard this verse before. Proverbs 13, verse 22. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Many of us may have heard a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I heard this growing up in church. And so, obviously, this kind of encourages or prompts you to leave some money for your children. This verse sometimes is read, and ministers pretty much say, hey, you know, you should be saving so you can have something to give to your children's children. Now, I'm not against that. If you can have something to give to your children, that's fine. But I do want to read another passage to kind of challenge our mindset, if we see it that way. Acts chapter 2. We're going to start from verse 42. Now, pretty much the New Testament church has begun. The day of Pentecost has taken place, and brothers and sisters are gathering as a family together, fellowshipping, praying together, and so on. So verse 42 in Acts chapter 2, it says, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in breaking of bread and in prayers. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles, and all that believed were together, and had all things in common. Verse 45, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men, as every man had need. So pretty much if they had something, they sold it, and if somebody needed something, they gave. If somebody had abundance, they give to the person who has lack. Kind of like a family. If I have enough and you don't have, I give to you. I want to read another passage, Acts chapter 4. Acts chapter 4, verse 32. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which they possessed was his own, but they all had things in common. So no one was being stingy or selfish and saying, well, this is my bag of Skittles, you can't have none. Verse 33, and with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked, right, what we talked about. For as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices, or brought the money of the things that were sold, and they laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. I want to point out a couple of things here. This passage should not be used as a standard for today's church. If this happens to happen, that's cool. If everyone comes together and says, you know what, I'm going to sell my car, I got 3 of them, I mean, we only need 2. I'm going to sell my car, and we're going to use this money to help somebody else in the church that doesn't have a car, or help somebody else in the church who needs help with housing. Okay, cool. If it happens like that in the fellowship or a church, that's beautiful. But this should not be seen as a law. It wasn't stated as a law. It was just stated literally as an act, the acts of the apostles. But if you notice, verse 34, neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as were possessors of lands or houses, they sold them, and they brought the money or the cost of what was sold to the church. Remember, Proverbs 13, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And you know, sometimes someone may try to make you feel guilty, because if a good man leaves an inheritance, then you can assume that a bad man doesn't, right? And if you happen to not have that much, you're seen as a bad man. And people can feel guilty. And this verse may be quoted in many churches to kind of prompt the people that they should be saving, they should be building up. They should have lands or houses that they want to pass down to their children. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have lands and houses you want to give to your children, nothing wrong with that. But we see here in the early church that people that had lands and houses, they sold them. Now, if we're going based on a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, well, these people they're not so good. They're not so wise. But we shouldn't say that. They were wise because this was an act of love. This was addressing the present need. It was a selfless act. If I have lands, if I have acres, if I have houses and I sell them so that my brothers and sisters may have something that they need, that is beautiful. And truly, that is a good man as well, or a good woman. So the relevancy of this verse, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. What is more important than leaving things for your children is leaving life. And what kind of life? A godly example. If there's a mother or a father or parents who can be a godly example to their children, that's priceless. That's a good man. That's a good woman. Money, no matter how much of a will, no matter how much of riches or money you may leave that child, nothing beats a good example in the home. And so when we hear a good man or a good woman leaves an inheritance for his children's children, let's not think about the things of life, but let's think about life itself. Because leaving a godly example is far better than leaving things that can fade away. And again, it's okay to leave things, but let's remember that the most important thing that a parent or a guardian can leave is a good example for those behind them.
Make these devils run like P.E. I'm with D.D. Gave his life up freely, now I'm in him completely. And I just grow, I build my life with a word like it's pro.